Hello everyone, welcome to Scorcher Toys at Anymoon.com's review of Bandai's VF31C Mirage Custom. This is Bandai's third dip in the VF31 well. They began the line in December 2016 with Hayate's VF31J. In April 2017 we got Messer's VF31F, and now in September 2017 we are getting Mirage's VF31C. All of these toys so far have retailed for 21,600 yen. These toys come in premium packaging. It's very nice thick cardboard and adorned with fairly attractive art. Once you open the toy, you'll find a cover that says "Remove before flight." Removing that cover reveals the styrofoam tray and the plastic clamshell on top of it that houses both the toy and the accessories. The accessories have their own little cover. Removing it reveals 6 sets of fixed posed hands, 2 daggers, a pilot, co-pilot, and 2 holographic projection devices, one in the square position, the other in the triangle position, and I apologize if they have some fancy name, I don't remember it. Removing the styrofoam tray, you will find the display stand, which consists of the base, the arm, and 3 adapters, one for each mode, and below that are the instructions. Now, I'm not a fan of wasting anyone's time, so if you're already familiar with the Bandai DX VF31 toy, I'm going to start and get all the important stuff out of the way for you guys. This toy is the same, no real improvements over previous Hayate and Messer releases. There are 2 differences as far as I can discern besides the paint scheme, which is quite clearly different. The first is something I touted about the VF31F toy, and that was that the canopy on it looked slightly more transparent than the canopy on the previous release, which was one of my complaints. So the VF31J toy has a very cloudy canopy, and it makes it quite difficult to see the pilot within, whereas the VF31F toy had a little bit more clarity to it. So I was like, yay, they're going in the right direction. But then I got my VF31C toy, which is the Mirage we're talking about today. And once again, super opaque. So hard to tell if it wasn't just VF31F toys have a production variance to them that allows a clearer canopy, or if Bandai made a conscious decision to go back to a canopy that you almost can't see through at all. So that was the first thing, I would say, a step backwards there, as I really did appreciate the clarity of Messer's canopy. Continuing this review's early focus on only the things that have changed, let's take a look at the pilot figure. Here she is. And now one nice little detail touch is she does have a bit of a chest on her to differentiate her from the Messer pilot figure. Obviously Hayate had a very special pilot figure without a helmet. Otherwise, she is very, very similar, but they did go the extra mile to craft a slightly different mold for her. On the co-pilot figures, here are all 3 of them we've had to date. We have Mechana, who comes with Mirage, on the right, Freya on the left, and Kaname in the middle. As you can see, they're all exactly the same, just different paint there. So with the new version comes, of course, a new head. We started with the VF31J head, which is still my favorite. It's got a nice translucent orange band in the middle, and there's green bits around it that are translucent. Single laser spike, single visor, although it is kind of an inlay to it. And overall, I would say it's pretty attractive. After that, we got the VF31F, which has sort of a bug head to it. Definitely not everyone's favorite. Has a unicorn spike that's very easily removed on the top of it. Translucent blue eyes on either side that kind of have this ridging to them, which again kind of reinforces that insect look. It actually almost looks like there's a butterfly right on the front of the face. So not necessarily everyone's favorite. It has the 2 articulated head lasers on either side, so you can kind of have them forward or back depending on your preference. But definitely a little bizarre. And now we have the VF31C, which has, I would say, my second favorite head on it. It is a double visor, so it's almost like a modern VF1D, although this is theoretically not a training vehicle. It's got a clear piece, and then that painted stripe in the middle. So nice detail work there. No unicorn spike, just kind of a white bump. And then, of course, the articulated head lasers on either side. So again, you have some optionality as far as how you want to have those angled and flared out or in. So very nice new head on the VF31C, in my opinion. So now that we've got the differences portion of this review out of the way, let's go through a traditional review of the Bandai DX VF31 for those of you who are less acquainted with it. Now, fighter mode does hold together very nicely. It's got some good heft to it. The one problem that people often complain about is this gap right here. That has becomes problematic too. If you lift the toy by the front here, you create a larger gap. There is a sliding hinge there. Usually all you got to do is push it in a little bit to close that hinge up. Now, one thing worth noting, if you haven't seen it yet, on my Messer toy, there is a tiny bit of paint rub at that hinge. So perhaps a durability issue. Definitely keep an eye on that as you're handling it. Now, the toy does have integrated landing gear. The front landing gear has a nice tow bar to it. Goes down, collapses. There are extending hinges that then collapse as well, which nice and tight once everything is put away. Going to the back, you do have some pretty funky rear landing gear. They twist and then go away. Now, one problem with these is that they don't roll particularly well. It is a rubber wheel on metal, but just doesn't roll quite right. And then when it tucks away, it does tuck away nicely like so. Now you can see if this toy, or if this vehicle fired its gun, it would blow off the front of the vehicle. So there is a little gimmick here that allows you to extend the gun away, so it would look much less like it's firing into itself. So that's cool, a little difficult to implement. There we go. So there you go. Now it looks like it can fire its gun. That's cool. While we're looking at the intakes, we can go ahead and pop these covers away to reveal the intake fan detail. That's pretty cool. Now you can see I've got one canard that is knocked out of position. The vertical stabilizers and the wings, all things that you could potentially bump out of position while handling. I would have liked there to have been some sort of a tooth there that held everything in position. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Now, plenty of tampo printing. You don't get stickers with this toy because all of the painting is on the toy. That's beautiful to see. There's a little fingernail slot in the back here. We can get our fingernail in there and then lift up to reveal those holographic projection devices. Again, they might have a fancier name. You can also tilt the hinge and then slide it all forward. Both versions of launching those were seen in the show, so that's good to see. Moving forward, we do get the opening canopy. It does feature the same second seat mechanism we've seen since Bandai did their YF29DX toys, where you could remove this cover and then push the seat back, grab your co-pilot figure, and then put her in. And of course your pilot figure as well. Fits right in the front. Like that. Like that. And then we close that up. And now you've got your pilot and your co-pilot in position. So fighter mode, lots of good thought put into the design. Handles pretty well. Also comes with this display stand. The display stand, very, very basic. No points of articulation to it. You just drop the toy on. It'll seat fairly nicely. It's nothing you would want to turn upside down or anything like that. But it does handle the toy well enough. This is what it looks like. There you go. Let's go ahead and transform it into Gearwalk mode. Now I do have separate transformation guides both from fighter to Batroid mode and back again. If you're not familiar with how that works, you should check that out because it does give you a more complete picture of how good this toy is. Gearwalk mode on these toys is crazy fun and good and amazing. I love it. It starts off with the back arm guns that we can swing around, and that gives us a little bit playability right off the bat. Then you've got this articulated weapon pack on the top with each individual item articulated, all very nice to see. The gun can be removed. Now I've loosened that up. That gun is on there very tightly to begin with, and it takes a few times of removing it before it comes off nicely. So here's the gun. You can now throw it in the hand. Unfortunately, we get to our first big weakness here, and that is the articulated hands that come installed on the toy are no bueno, because the pointer finger doesn't articulate at all. It just does what it does. So if you wanted to have fists, you can't. And if you want to put the gun in the hand, you can make this work. So if you're a real stickler for not using the included option parts and just perfect everything, you can get the gun in there. It'll flop out every time you handle the toy, so it's not ideal. The better thing to do is to go ahead and just pop the toy's hand off at a ball joint. As you can see there, the toy comes with two other holding a gun hands. The big difference between them is just the angle of the ball joint that connects. I don't really know that it matters very much. I will use the one that's angled downward. We'll take our gun and we will fish through the handle. Now it seems like it's a delicate thin piece of plastic and it fits very tightly, so definitely be careful with how you do that. Once you do it, we'll just pop the ball joint back in, and there you go. Now it's going to handle very securely, so that's great to see. Moving to the other hand here, we have a bunch of choices, right? We could go with the open hand, or we could go with a dagger holding hand, because we get daggers. 2 daggers, one for either hand. They do collapse and can be stowed underneath the shield here. And you can even forget about it and transform the toy. It's not going to get in your way. So that's pretty cool. Now I'm going to go ahead and extend it. Plop it in the hand. And again, you're dealing with fairly small pieces of plastic that fit very securely into their housing. So you might want to be a little gentle in how you do things. But there you go. We just plug this in, and now we've got the knife in the hand, the gun in the hand, and they're going to stay there very well. Articulation of Gearwalk mode is amazing. It is very, very good. And, you know, Gearwalk mode lives and dies with the articulation of the legs and the ability for the intakes to stay locked in position while you handle the toy. This toy does a very good job with those legs staying locked into position. Now I just moved it down with the arm there, but if it's put in place properly, I can play with this toy. I can actually play with it, and those things don't pop out, which is huge. Then you get this swivel right underneath the intake, which adds a lot of the ability to get aggressive wide stances. Then we have a swivel again at the knee, which is huge. And then check out the range of motion going forward on that. You can bring that so it's parallel essentially with the front of the vehicle. So that is unheard of. And then we get to the foot, and this part here is on a ball joint. Sometimes it pops off, so I apologize if that's about to happen. But we could bring the foot forward. You hear the ratchet there? You can bring it that far forward. Look at that. It's like parallel with the nose cone. That is insane. Not only that, but if we bring the foot back, we can rock it in and out fairly well. So huge range of motion in the leg, the hip, the thigh, and the foot, which lead to just a ton of fun. My only real complaint here is that I wish these knee ratchets were a little bit more stiff, because sometimes you'll be posing the toy and one of those ratchets will get loose on you. Now, turning our attention to the shoulders here, you do have a great range of motion on the shoulders, but you do want to be careful not to run them into the painted area right behind them. So that is going to be a durability issue for you. The good thing is you don't have to get too crazy with it, because you can swivel the arm out at the shoulder, and then you've got a twist right here. and the double jointed elbow. So tons of articulation. You will have probably more fun in gear walk mode with this toy than you have had with any other Valkyrie toy. Alright, so you can obviously use the display stand in gear walk mode. It's not going to be any more fancy or fun for you. It does attach relatively well. I also wanted to show you that if you didn't like how the weapons pod looked above, you can go ahead and fold that back over. It does interfere a little bit with how the gear walk adapter attaches to the plane, but not enough where it renders the display stand useless, which is kind of surprising since it's not something that you would think most people are going to do. So there's an option for you. Also in fighter mode, you can go ahead and pull that weapons pod out if you wanted to and return the toy to fighter mode. I didn't really touch on that. So that is also true. Now, one other thing that I talked about when I was talking about the feet, I failed to mention that you can also rotate the foot. So I told you there's back and forth rocking, but there's also a little bit of back and forth twisting. So that is also really good to see and also will help you with how you pose this toy in gear walk mode. But now let's head on to Batroid. As much fun as gear walk is, so is Batroid mode. You could bring the gun down on the back here and it kind of looks like the old VF1 strike parts, so that's a cool callback. You still have the ability to pivot these guns forward, which is pretty cool. The fingers on the articulated hands, still a little bummer that you can't make a fist out of them, but again, you've got the fixed posed hands to deal with that. I didn't mention it before, but this head has a couple little whiskers underneath it. I could see where some people might not love that element to the head, but otherwise I think it's a nice head that looks pretty aggressive, and again, we can do a lot of different things with it. It is on a ball joint. The shoulder is no longer so inhibited in this mode by that area that you didn't want to scratch in gear walk mode, so you can go up, down, rotate all around, and then of course you have the ability to bring the arm out. And we've kind of gone over the arm articulation already in gear walk mode. You do have a waist, which gives you a lot of fun posing the toy. You pull out the hips as part of transformation, and then that lets you get a really nice wide stance here. And since those feet, obviously, as we went through in gear walk mode, offer a ton of articulation, you can handle that wide stance. Of course, you can bring them in as well. You still have that twist point that we talked about in gear walk mode, which lets you get some nice poses again now in Batroid mode, and that gear walk joint underneath of it. So if you want to do some sort of a running type pose, that's going to help you out. Or you can just go ahead and move the hip joint, and I'm being quiet while I do that so you can hear that it is ratcheted, which is necessary given how much weight hangs off the back. Going down to the knee. Now in Batroid mode, we have the knee extended one joint. You can pull it out further, kind of cheat a little bit while posing it, and that lets you get a little greater range of motion. If we bring it down just the one click, you still have a nice range of motion. So just a little cheat that you can or cannot use depending on what you want to do. And then going down, obviously we have that knee twist still. And the big complaint about Batroid mode, other than those articulated hands, is that you'll have the feet recessed in Batroid mode, and it feels like there's supposed to be an intermediate position where the feet can be, but it doesn't really lock firmly in position. So if you're going to do it, if you're going to have the feet out, you can extend them all the way, and again, extending them all the way out really gives you that huge range of articulation in all sorts of different directions. When you've got everything collapsed, it's going to limit things a little bit. So a little bit of a bummer that intermediate lock position does not exist in Batroid mode, but it's not going to stop you from having fun or getting this thing in some great poses. At 1/60 scale, Bandai's DX VF31 toys are about 32 centimeters long in fighter mode. In Batroid mode, they're a little bit better than 25 centimeters tall, and you can definitely play with that by extending the ankles or the knees. In these pictures, you can see kind of how that stacks up against other toys you might have in your collection. Now, when you do get this toy out on a display stand, that really frees you up to play with all of that articulation without any fear of gravity. Now, you can also see here that I've got the weapons pack. I've just kind of stowed it in the back. You can't fold it completely over, especially if you're using the display stand. There's just not enough room in there. You're going to run into this stuff right there. But you can fold it over like that, and that definitely minimizes the visual footprint from the front. And yeah, you can see I am having a lot of fun, even though this is a very basic display stand. It's holding the toy up, it's supporting it, and really letting me enjoy all of the articulation that this toy has to offer. So overall, I am still a huge fan of the VF31 toys. I think Bandai really did a great job, especially considering that no one had made a DX VF31 toy previously, or VF31 toy for that matter. So they really knocked the ball out of the park on these first efforts, but there's a couple little minor quibbles. Other than that, you are going to very much enjoy handling this toy, and I recommend you go get one. Check out anymoon.com for my full article, and as always, thanks for watching.